Well, as expected, it was another interesting game between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. And as expected, the Buffalo Bills did what the Buffalo Bills do in the regular season. They won again, 28-21. Josh Allen's led Bills over Patrick Mahomes led Chiefs are now 5-1 against the Chiefs in the regular season. But of course, the script has been flipped in the playoffs, where Kansas City has never lost to Josh Allen and the Bills, a perfect 4-0, including a couple of AFC championship games. But there is a bigger picture that needs to be delved into here when you look at how this matchup unfolded. And for all the good things that Kansas City has done since they've gotten Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice back, and you can certainly see their offense is more potent, most games are won and lost at one place and one place only. And that was the line of scrimmage. And my God, did Buffalo dominate the line of scrimmage in this contest on Sunday. And here's what's really interesting about it. They dominated it without their best players. Ed Oliver was out. They had DaQuan Jones was out. They had all kinds of injuries in their secondary, and it didn't matter. Joey Bosa was an absolute beast in this game. You know, they got after Patrick Mahomes so consistently, it was absolutely remarkable. You look at what happened in this game. They pressured him almost all the time. I think he was pressured over 50% of the time. In that contest, he had a sub-50 completion percentage for the first time in his professional career. 15 of 34, 250 yards, no touchdowns, passing touchdowns, and one interception, although that interception was really a punt at that point in the ballgame. They just had to let it go. The Bills pressured Mahomes on more than 52% of his dropbacks. That's the fifth highest pressure rate Mahomes has faced in his entire career. And by the way, when he was pressured, he went 3 of 16 for 61 yards and that interception. And all of those 3 completions were to Travis Kelce. Who else? The Buffalo Bills did an amazing job defensively and did an amazing job at the line of scrimmage. In fact, you want to take this one step further. You know, in almost all the playoff games, there have been questionable coaching decisions by Sean McDermott and company. You know, the 2021 divisional game where they kicked it out of the back of the end zone with 13 seconds left and they had the lead. That was a mistake. The divisional playoff game a couple of years ago where they tried to fake punt inside their own 35-yard line that gave the Chiefs an opportunity to really put that game away. And then Mecole Hardman, fumbled it away late in that contest at the goal line. And so they got away with it. Almost in every one of these matchups, these big matchups, there have been questionable decisions by Sean McDermott and his coaching staff. They were perfect on Sunday. They found a way to pressure Patrick without giving up running lanes. Now, what does that mean? That means everybody has a designed role on the defensive line or on the front seven. And stay in your lane. Don't loop outside. Don't loop inside. Stay in your designated area and create havoc. And they were able to do that consistently. Look, I get it. Jalen Moore was filling in for Josh Simmons, the rookie who's been away. But he's played very well. He's played very well over the last few weeks. And then they had some injuries. Juwan Taylor left that game at tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Some would say that's kind of a blessing, as he's been very, very penalty prone throughout his career. But the bottom line is the Chiefs' offensive line, which looked to have been fixed after getting dismantled in the Super Bowl by Philadelphia, absolutely got bulldozed. And oh, by the way, on the other side of it, the offensive line for Buffalo really, really dominated. If they won first down, they basically scored every time they had a chance in that game. When the Chiefs were able to stop them on first down, that was the only time they really got any defensive consistency and were able to shut things down. So what I really liked about this game for Buffalo is that they figured out a way to contain the explosive plays of the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, which is what everyone had been talking about since they got Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy back. Not only did they have rush lane integrity, but they disguised a lot of times how many safeties were going to be back. It's called 2 high safeties. A lot of times in pre-snap, it looked like 1 high safety, and then they went on and after the ball was snapped, they disguised it so well that they had a second player or a second cornerback there or a second defensive back there to make it a 2 high safety situation, which is exactly, by the way, the same defense that Todd Bowles used in Super Bowl 55 against the Chiefs when they lost to the Bucs 31-9. It was a really frustrating performance up front. They got pressure and they were able to take away the deep shots from Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in that Super Bowl. really very similar to what played out. They really had an excellent game plan. And if you're the Chiefs, you got to be a little concerned here, okay? Because for all the good things that have happened, they're in the meat of their schedule right now. They're on a bye. Now, next week, they got to go to Denver. Then they play the Colts, and then they play the Cowboys. If they lose 2 more of those games, they're in a dogfight to make the playoffs, let alone win the division or maybe even have a chance to have home field advantage. They've got to essentially win out for that to be the case. Is it possible? Absolutely. But the next opponent they have after the bye is the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos do what Buffalo did better than anybody. Denver controls the line of scrimmage. They have the most sacks in the NFL, and they give up the fewest sacks in the NFL. Does that sound familiar? That sounds exactly like what we saw play out at Orchard Park Sunday afternoon in Buffalo. The Chiefs could not get past that front wall of the Buffalo Bills, whether on offense or on defense. James Cook became the first running back, I think, in 2 seasons to rush for over 100 yards against Steve Spagnuolo. The last runner to do that against the Chiefs was Jalen Hurts, the Eagles quarterback. So it had been a long, long time since they'd had a running back sort of dominate them. This is what Brandon Beane, the Bills general manager, did this offseason. You know, they lost a couple of wide receivers, and people were like, well, why aren't you going out and getting weapons for Josh Allen? He went out and got pass rushers. He went and got Larry Ogunjobi, who was suspended for the first 6 games. He went out and got Joey Bosa. He went out and got a bunch of other pass rushers. And that was the reason, and that was the difference in this ballgame. There was constant pressure for Patrick Mahomes. And I got to say, I thought at the time, at the end of the half, it made sense for Andy Reid to kick that field goal because you don't want to have an empty possession there after Hollywood Brown takes you down to the 1-yard line. You got to get points. But when it was 4th and 1 and you decide to kick the field goal with 6 seconds left, I get it. On one level, you're thinking to yourself, okay, that makes it a 1-possession game. It would be 8 points. We get the ball to start the second half. We get some points here. We get a little momentum. I understand that. I do. But in hindsight, I think it was the wrong decision. You're that close. You got to punch it in. And at that point, they got stuffed on the first down run there by Kareem Hunt, and they lost a little bit of yardage, right? So the problem is that Kareem Hunt has been more successful at a higher conversion rate on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 this season, than the tush push has been for Philadelphia. He had a couple of 3rd and 4th and 1 shorts in that game and converted both of them. I think they were a little gun shy to run it because they realized that if they didn't get in, the ball game's over, and they don't get any points or the half is over. But I think in hindsight, that was a tactical mistake by Andy Reid. And this is the first time I can look at a matchup between the Bills and the Chiefs and think that the Bills outcoached the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Steve Spagnuolo, the DC, made great defensive adjustments in the second half, and they weren't gashed as much. But at the end of the day, when they needed to make a play to stop them, they couldn't. They couldn't find a way to slow down that Bills offense. And oh, by the way, just so people understand how different every season is, the Chiefs went into this season having won an NFL record 17 straight one-score games, including the postseason. Longest streak in the history of the NFL. You know what their record is in one-score games this year? 0-4. They either beat you by double digits or they lose. And while a lot of people, including myself, think this version of the Chiefs is really a better team, top to bottom, than they had a year ago, wins are the only thing that matter. They might be a better team, but they're not finding ways to win. What they're doing now are finding ways to lose. The only good news for Kansas City in this situation is that you don't crown a champion the first weekend in November. You crown them the first week in February. And they have time to figure it out. But they don't have a lot of time. As we just mentioned, the next 3 games really will determine whether or not the Chiefs are going to be one of those teams that is going to scrape to find a wild card spot. Look, and if they get in, I'm not betting against them. The Chiefs have won multiple playoff games in 6 consecutive postseasons. And in case you're wondering, yeah, that is a record. The longest streak before that was 3 by multiple teams. 3 straight seasons. They have won at least 2 playoff games in 6 straight seasons. So if they get in, even if they're the 7th seed as a wild card, I think they can still do whatever they want. But right now, they're on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, and they've got a game against Denver after their bye. This Chiefs team has got a way to figure out a way to win ugly. They win beautifully very well, 31-0 against the Raiders, 28-7 against the Commanders. They won against the Lions by double digits. They know how to win beautifully. They've got to find a way to win ugly, because winning ugly is really the key in this entire NFL. Bill Belichick, pre-Chapel Hill Bill, was the best at this. He used to say to his teams, guys, we can beat you a lot of different ways, and that's what we do better than anybody. The Chiefs can only beat you one way right now. They can only beat you if they get that explosive offense going and they get a lead, and then they can turn the dogs loose basically on defense. And speaking of that, Chris Jones has been a non-factor this entire season. Did he? I think he had a tackle, maybe 2, in that game against the Bills on Sunday. He only has 2 sacks on the season. If they're going to be a disruptive force that everybody thinks they can be, then Chris Jones has to play like Chris Jones, not like some other dude out there wearing a Chris Jones costume on Halloween. He is not the same guy this season, hasn't been there. We saw what happened to him in the Monday night game against Jacksonville on the game-winning score for Trevor Lawrence after he fell down. He basically stopped. He stopped playing and later said it was a teachable moment and all of that, and it's wonderful that he said that. Now go play like you're frickin' Chris Jones. He is not playing like Chris Jones. The Chiefs have some real concerns. Now, I'm not throwing dirt on their grave in any way, shape, or form, because we've seen this team do what they've done before. But they've got to start doing it now. This is the crux of the matter. This is the heart of their schedule. The next 3 games will determine everything. As for Buffalo, you look at their schedule, they got to play the Patriots in New England. It's not nearly as difficult as the road ahead for Kansas City. The Kansas City margin for error is down to basically 1 more loss. If they want to have any chance at winning the division, they can't go any worse than 12-5 with Denver sitting there at 7-2. And while everybody points to this litmus game as Buffalo, the Bills always beat them in the regular season. It's the other side that counts. People are now saying that Josh Allen is basically Patrick Mahomes' dad. Okay, sure. Get out of here with that, because it doesn't matter unless it happens in the postseason. Hell, Bills fans will tell you that. So I'm not extrapolating anything about Buffalo's dominance over Kansas City in this game until it happens in the postseason. What I am concerned about, if you're Kansas City, is that you've got to find a way to control the line of scrimmage. Because if you can't control the line of scrimmage, you can't get it done. Chiefs' margin for error is down to 1 more loss. If they go 12-5, they have a legitimate shot at winning that division. And quite frankly, while everyone looks at this Bills game as the test, honestly, the most important game on their entire schedule is this game coming up after their bye in Denver. Patrick Mahomes, in his career as a starting quarterback, has 1 road divisional loss on his resume. 1. And it was 2 years ago in Denver against the Denver Broncos. Last season, he didn't play in that meaningless Week 17 game where they basically called off the dogs. They'd already secured the number 1 seed. Didn't matter. The most important game for Kansas City is their next one. If they lose that one, then we're talking a lot of problems for Kansas City. Now, if they find a way to win that game, and suddenly they're just 1 game behind Denver with the tiebreak, and then they have the home game, I think the last game of the regular season against the Broncos, we're talking about a completely different animal. Buffalo looked great. Buffalo always looks great against Kansas City in the regular season. Let's see how it happens in January if these two meet again. But for Kansas City, as much, Patrick Mahomes a week ago, he's a prohibitive favorite to win the MVP. They're the prohibitive favorite to win the division. Well, all of that changes week to week. So everybody take the long view, all right? Everything we thought we knew about Kansas City turned out not be accurate on Sunday. They got pile-driven by a Buffalo team that was injured defensively and still found a way to dominate them. Buffalo's on a really good path right now, but they got to keep winning. And the Chiefs' margin of error is down to 1. They really can only afford to lose 1 more game the rest of the way if they want to have any chance at claiming the division and maybe getting home field advantage for the postseason. They better use this bye week to find a way to get things right on the offensive line, or this incredible run that we've talked about with Kansas City, 7 straight appearances in the AFC Championship game, might be on life support. We'll see what happens. And that's Straight Facts.